What's up, nerds? China has launched a massive series of military drills around Taiwan. We're going to talk about what these drills include. We're going to talk about how large they are. We're going to talk about what they did not include, at least so far. We're going to talk about why exactly they're happening right now. And I'm recording this video on May 24th, 2024, so let's dive right into it. Now, these are some of the largest exercises that we have seen so far in quite a while, at least. The exercises are named Joint Sword 2024A, which of course the A implies that there might be more exercises later on this year. But these exercises include dozens of Chinese Navy ships, Chinese Coast Guard vessels, and PLA Air Force aircraft. And the exercises altogether include pretty much every branch of the Chinese PLA. Now, these exercises kicked off yesterday on May 23rd, and they're expected to conclude at the end of today, May 24th. They also do include all three of the Chinese PLA's aircraft carriers. And this exercise signifies the largest incursion into Taiwan's ADIZ, that's Air Defense Identification Zone, in quite a long time, and including on all of 2024. Now, not only are these drills taking place all around the main island of Taiwan, but they're also taking place very, very closely to the islands of Kinmen, Wuqiu, and Dongyin. And these islands are very close to the Chinese coastline. They're part of Taiwan, but of course, obviously, China claims all of it. And because they're so close to the Chinese mainland, they're often looked at as being what China would target first in a conflict. Now, I've already mentioned that these exercises are taking place within Taiwan's ADIZ, but they are not taking place within the 12 nautical miles that constitute Taiwan's actual territory, off its coast. So, although they are very large, they're somewhat limited in that they're not pushing Taiwan too far as impacting its legal territory. Speaking of limited, there are also no live fire exercises near Taiwan, and this contrasts past exercises that we've seen. For instance, whenever then Senate Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, this was, I want to say last year or the year before, China launched a series of exercises that included the overflight of missiles from the PLARF over Taiwan. Now, this does not include that. This is, it really just looks like it's ships and aircraft, flying and sailing close to Taiwan, but not necessarily shooting anything yet. Of course, the official stance from China is that these exercises are designed to test their ability to destroy areas of power and to seize power within Taiwan. Now, they're saying some pretty obvious stuff here. I think anybody that looks at Chinese exercises around Taiwan can generally assume, okay, well, they're testing their ability to fight Taiwan and to win. So that at least is publicly what China's claiming. Although again, consider how limited in scope these exercises appear to be right now. Taiwan put its military into high alert as these exercises kicked off. There's footage of Taiwanese anti-ship cruise missiles moving around and being placed on high alert, as well as the tracking of Chinese ships and aircraft from the Taiwanese military. These exercises were also paired with some pretty significant saber rattling from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. They've started to become more outspoken over Taiwan in recent years, adopting more aggressive rhetoric. Of course, with these exercises, they have threatened Taiwan, saying, with the spokesman of the Foreign Ministry saying, quote, "Taiwan independent forces will be left with their heads broken and blood flowing." I think that's a little much, a little extra, but all right, go off, King. Now, originally, I wasn't going to make a video about these exercises. I have another video that's probably going to be coming out sometime next week about Russian war crimes in Ukraine, and I think that that's going to be not a pleasant watch because it's not pleasant subject matter, but it will be very important for everybody to watch that because it's, this is stuff that you should not be looking away from. You have to understand the scale of what is happening. But anyway, so I was working on that video. Of course, these exercises kicked off, and I started to see, some folks reacting to these exercises in a way that I thought, okay, maybe I should say something. Honestly, we've seen several PLA exercises around Taiwan the past few years. I did not feel like this was anything special. And that being said, with the people freaking out about it, what the heck? Why not make a video about it? At the very least, to contextualize why these exercises are happening now and what they're designed to really accomplish. And in doing so, I realized that, okay, well, maybe this is actually more important than I thought originally. Now, why are these exercises happening right now? Taiwan wrapped up its presidential election for 2024 back in January with the election of Tsai Ing-wen's former VP, Lai Ching-te. He's the head of the Democratic People's Party, and this is a pro-independence party that has had power in Taiwan for at least the last couple presidential terms. Lai has extended an olive branch to China for negotiations, but has had basically zero luck. It's like Xi Jinping would rather drink bleach than talk to Lai Ching-te, and I think that that's just messed up. Now, China views any kind of democratic expression on the island of Taiwan as a strategic threat to itself. Of course, China claims that Taiwan is still part of China, and so anything that Taiwan does that's independent from China, it perceives as a threat to its own power and a threat to the Chinese people. For instance, U.S. politicians visit Taiwan, time for a drill. Vote for a new president, time for a drill. New president gets sworn in, time for a drill. That's basically what's going on right now. And it's become such a pattern that the Taiwanese military even knows that it's coming. Now, with all of this going on, there was one article that claimed that China will attempt an invasion of Taiwan in June. And I think that being released alongside these exercises and the war in Ukraine being what it is, and the war in Israel being what it is, I think that freaks some people out. However, I don't think that that's necessarily that concerning the deeper you look into it, because of course June is typhoon season, and it would be absolutely insane for anybody to try to move a massive fleet across the Strait of Taiwan in that time. I think that it's just bunk. It's not going to happen. I would be shocked if it happened. That being said, China might still be stupid, so that's an option if they want to try that. So I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but, probably not. Now, typhoon season ends in the mid to late fall, so I would say at the earliest, that would be about the time that we would probably see anything if it was going to happen this year, if we see it at all. Now, that said, it still includes significant risks to China if they try it this year. It's not going to get any easier for them the longer they wait. The U.S. Defense Industrial Base has been spooling up as a result of the war in Ukraine, and I think that the war in Ukraine has really woken people in the United States up, especially politicians and the electorate, to what war really can look like and what the risks of war are for the United States right now. There are some that are critiquing support for Ukraine in favor of Taiwan. They want to make sure that we are fully supporting Taiwan more necessarily than we are supporting Ukraine, even though we don't necessarily have any formal alliances or agreements with either. However, that's not necessarily true. A war over Ukraine is completely different from what a war over Taiwan would be. A war in Ukraine is it's largely a land war. A war in Taiwan is largely going to be a naval conflict. It requires completely different platforms, completely different kinds of munitions. But that being said, with the defense industrial base spooling up the way it is, everything's getting spooled up. It's not just artillery shells, it's potentially precision guided munitions, stuff like that will be able to help out in Taiwan. In either case, the longer that China waits to take Taiwan, then the more prepared that the United States will be industrially to support a larger scale conflict, especially in the Pacific. So is this specific exercise reason enough for concern? No, I wouldn't really say so. However, what I would say is more of a concern is the way that these exercises have become normalized. I think the fact that even I was kind of sleeping on this exercise in general, to me, is enough of a concern. And that has been a development from the past few years. It's fairly recent. China has done these kinds of incursions and exercises around Taiwan so regularly that they've kind of become boring. They're not really that surprising whenever they happen, and their limited scope kind of makes it seem like, okay, well, this isn't going to be anything. But consider a scenario where China decided to move, like, say, on the islands of Kinmen, and they did so using one of these exercises to basically springboard a limited operation where everybody sees, okay, China's launching another exercise and it doesn't look like it's anything special, similar to this, but then say day 3 or 4 they launch an amphibious invasion of the Kinmen Islands, or even worse, they actually launch an attack on the main Taiwan island. I think that is the real concern right now. It's not necessarily that these exercises are happening at all. It's more on the regularity of these exercises and what could potentially spawn from them at some point, given the size and scope of these exercises being what they would need to be to achieve some sort of tactical or operational surprise. It's easier, of course, to hide a large military operation that's going to happen in the real world whenever you are preparing for an exercise. For instance, massing of troops, you can just say, okay, they're massing because they're about to take part in this exercise, and they're not massing because they're going to invade Taiwan. And so while, say the Taiwanese military would be watching the massing of forces, they would probably perceive it as, okay, well, maybe that's part of their exercise. Or let's say, the Chinese Navy sets out and starts, scanning for submarines in a way that they haven't before. Their aircraft starts pushing a little bit tighter into Taiwan's ADIZ. It's all part of the pattern that they've shown before, so it wouldn't necessarily look out of place until, of course, they actually start dropping bombs and the troops actually start landing on Taiwanese beaches. Then it's very much a real deal. Now, in either case, war over Taiwan would be an absolute nightmare, and it's funny that this is all happening right now because I just finished a couple videos that analyze this conflict from both sides. I have one video on why Taiwan will be so hard to invade, and I have another video on why Taiwan will be so hard to defend. And I think that this is a nice way to kind of analyze this conflict from both angles to see just how difficult both sides have it over this conflict and why it'll be so just nasty on both sides. So certainly check that out. Comment your thoughts on what you think these exercises mean, what you think they're actually going to accomplish, and leave a like and a subscription if you think that this video was helpful and informative and you want to watch some more analysis on this potential conflict. Hopefully it doesn't become that, or the war in Ukraine, or the one in the Middle East. With all that, I'll be seeing you next time. Later.